Hello again, and welcome to another Virginia Politics on Demand from BearingDrift.com. Another one of our great interviews that we've been having with House Delegate candidates. So right now I'm joined by Chris Marola, who is running in the 53rd House of Delegates district against incumbent, 18-year incumbent, Jim Scott. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, we were talking a little bit ahead of time. The first words out of your mouth regarding Jim Scott was that he was a tax and spend liberal. Certainly you make no bones about your opponent and where you see him on the political scale. Talk a little bit about your candidacy here and why you're running.
I began researching who my local officials were. Found out I was represented by a fellow named Jim Scott, 18-year entrenched bureaucrat who's been there forever. Found out he basically hasn't, he's never met a tax hike he didn't like.
Right.
And so I decided at that point, maybe someone should challenge him. So there was no Republican in the race. So about 9-10 days of thought and contemplation, I decided, okay, I'm going to go for it. Having worked on 9 campaigns myself, having worked for 2 members of Congress, I currently work as a new media consultant on Capitol Hill. So I said, I've helped get people elected. Why can't I elect myself and challenge an 18-year incumbent? I've always believed in term limits.
Okay.
And if there's ever a reason to bring term limits to Virginia, it's an 18-year entrenched incumbent like Jim Scott who's never met a tax hike he didn't like.
Sure. So you're new to the area. A lot of folks, they talk about Terry McAuliffe being new to Virginia or new to Virginia politics. How are you going to get over that hurdle of being new to the community? I imagine you're going and talking to a lot of people, knocking on a lot of doors right now.
That's a good question. I mean, in all fairness, my wife and I have lived in Northern Virginia for about 6 years.
Okay.
So we're not that new. We were in Arlington most of the time. However, in Northern Virginia, let's face it, I would wager to say at least half of the people aren't from here. They're either from a different state or even from another country. And so if Jim Scott or another Democrat wants to make an issue of the fact that I'm not originally from Virginia, well, to me, I think that would be a smack in the face to all the immigrants and all the people who have moved in to Fairfax who haven't been raised in Fairfax. Northern Virginia is a transient area. There's an understanding among the people that a lot of people aren't from that area. What matters to them is, can you get the job done? We are in an economic crisis right now, and if we don't make the right decisions to weather the storm that is coming, I write articles for townhall.com as a guest columnist. My most recent article was a column that I titled The Coming Economic Tsunami. And so in it I describe what is coming. These are facts. Hyperinflation, runaway deficits and debt, unfunded entitlements, and so on. All of these things are going to hit us within the next year or two, and our economy is going to really, really suffer. And again, getting back to my point, if we don't do the right things now, if we don't weather that storm, we will be consumed by it. So that's why I'm running, is because regardless of where I'm from, we all can agree, if we don't have economic development, if we don't have a thriving, growing economy, if we don't allow the business community to hire more people, we are going to suffer. So that's why I'm running.
Sure. So let's talk about that from a Fairfax perspective, from a Virginia House of Delegates perspective. What role do you see for yourself as a delegate? What are the main issues that you see coming up in the 2010 General Assembly session that you can do to ensure that there is strong growth in Fairfax, that the transportation issues can be solved? What policies are you going to advocate for your constituents?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm the son of Italian immigrants. My parents' lives were saved by the U.S. Army during World War II. I grew up in a blue-collar working-class family. My father was a steel worker, my mother a seamstress. I paid my own way through college. I joined the Army at the age of 17 in order to get funding for college and to give something back to the Army for having saved my parents' lives. And so I know what it's like to work hard. I know what it's like to pay your own way through school. I went part-time to school for 10 years while balancing work and the Army National Guard. So I know what it's like to be a business owner. I know what it's like to have have to, meet a payroll. I know what it's like to have to struggle in order to succeed. So I'm going to bring to the state, to the state house, the understanding of what it takes for people to have to balance their own budget, to have to work and live and thrive and grow in Northern Virginia. In order to do that, we have to, one, cut taxes on income. We have to cut taxes on business, because right now businesses are laying people off. If we cut taxes on business, they can afford to keep people hired, and more importantly, hire some more people.
The argument you're going to get there from the Democrats, as we've seen here in the last several budget issues that we've had here in Virginia, is that they're going to argue that we don't have enough revenues coming in to the state as it is. So if we're facing these revenue shortfalls, how is cutting taxes going to be able to help that?
Sure. Well, there are several things we can do to prove that will help. First of all, when you cut taxes, you put more money in the hands of people and businesses, so the economy actually grows in time. Second of all, we can find new revenue by doing some things that Bob McDonnell wants to do, such as drilling offshore in Virginia, to bring new revenue into the budget without having to raise taxes. So those are things. And third, I want to get rid of waste. There's a lot of wasteful programs. There's a lot of government waste that can be cut and trimmed. Let's face it, under Tim Kaine, it's been a long time since we've had a balanced budget. So let's get back to square one. Let's cut waste. Let's balance the budget. Let's save money where we can. Let's find new revenue without raising taxes, because that will burden the business community. That will burden the taxpayers who are already struggling because of the economic downturn. Yeah. So let's not go down the direction, or down the path that leads to greater economic depression or recession or economic downturn. Let's move in a different direction. Let's shift gears. Let's move away from an 18-year entrenched incumbent who's never seen a tax hike he didn't like.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today on Virginia Politics on Demand. Chris Morello is running for the 53rd House of Delegates against Jim Scott up in Fairfax. We wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For Virginia Politics on Demand on BearingDrift.com, I'm Jim Heft. Take care.
Thanks.